Sober, sobriety, alcoholic, all of these terms are dark and heavy and limiting. And for me, they imply that under normal circumstances, you would drink, but you can't because you've got a problem. Whereas alcohol free to me is you are choosing a lifestyle. Like the name of my organization is Alcohol Free Lifestyle. And those three words were very strategically chosen when I started this company all the way back in 2015. Alcohol free and lifestyle. So it's not sobriety, it's not being sober, it's not surrendering to a higher power, it's not saying I have a disease, it's not having to do a 12-step program, it's not having to go to rehab, it's not being in recovery. We don't use that terminology inside our organization, and we encourage and invite our clients who are with us to we help them stop drinking, we invite them not to use that language. We suggest always be choosing what you want as opposed to trying to avoid what you don't want.
I love it, man. And I agree a 100%, not a whole hundred, because there's nothing less than 100. But alcohol free, like we talk about in our work, helping men become porn free. And I've actually debated changing. So our company is called Rebuilt Recovery, but I'm actually kind of at this crossroads right now where, like, do I need to make a rebrand and remove the word recovery? Because for me, it's very similar in kind of the things that we talk about. It's this identity transformation, and our identity is rooted in the words that we use. So what role do you see maybe people's identity playing in either keeping them stuck, and how important is it for us to kind of transcend any old identities to truly live alcohol free?
Yeah, I'm in alignment with your thinking there about the word recovery and addiction and alcoholic. All of these words are just having us feel stuck, having us be stuck, and stepping into an identity that I would submit isn't even real, doesn't even exist. It's just we've lazily thrown around this term alcoholic for decades, mistakenly believing that anyone who's drinks too much and seemingly has a drinking problem in the moment is therefore an alcoholic. It's not true. Would you be surprised to learn, Frank, that in actual fact, the medical community has not used the term alcoholic for the past 7 years? It's now alcohol use disorder. And yet you see it on every television show and every movie, every news report talking about alcoholics, alcoholics, alcoholics. Alcoholics don't exist. It's just people who are drinking too much in the moment, and there are consequences. But when you start walking around saying, I'm in recovery, or I'm sober, or I'm an alcoholic, it implies that you have some genetic disease, or that's who you are, and you can't change anything. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You can change your lifestyle, you can change your habits, and you don't need to be walking around saying, I am this and I am that, because it keeps you stuck. In fact, the National Institute of uh, the National Institute of Alcohol and Alcoholism, and strangely enough, they actually still use the word alcoholic and alcoholism in its name because it was created in the late 1970s, and so they just figured it was too much of a rebrand to remove those words. So they've kept it the way it is. They now don't use the word alcoholics except in their actual name, right? Their organizational name. But they say that, and they've done research to suggest this, that if your parents or grandparents had what is now referred to as an alcohol use disorder, it is true that you will have a 50% increased chance of experiencing what we now know as being an alcohol use disorder. Now, that is true based on genetics, right? However, while it's not your fault that you may have that 50% increased chance of developing an alcohol use disorder, it is now your responsibility to be able to stop that, and you can. And this is what's commonly referred to as epigenetics. And epigenetics means we can change the expression of our genes. Now, we can't change the genetic code, we can't change the genetic sequence, right? Just cannot stop that. But we can change the expression of the genes. And the way that we change the expressions is with sunlight, nutrition, mobility, exercise, conscious communication, personal development, grounding, um, focusing on appreciation instead of expectation. All of these things can reduce our cravings for alcohol or porn or shopping or love, and can just enable us to live much more pleasant and enjoyable lives, which completely distinguish oh, I'm sorry, um, extinguish the desire to get something to temporarily numb us. So, all of that is to say, I invite you, if you're listening to this and you're walking around calling yourself an alcoholic, or you're saying that you're in recovery, challenge that notion. You're perfect as you are. You just have something temporarily in your way that is preventing that perfection from being unleashed.
I love that, man. In everything that you're sharing here, I've mentioned multiple times. It's so congruent, I think, with our message and our approach and how I see. I don't want to use the word recovery now because you're kind of challenging me here to stop using recovery, but how I see the work that we do. So many men keep this victim mindset. They're trying to stop this behavior versus saying, okay, how do I live kind of without it? When it comes to the alcohol, though, I mean, it plays such a big part in social communities, in celebrations, just in society and in culture. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen with men or people out there in general that buy into your message but are holding on to some of these untruths about the role that alcohol needs to play in their lives?
Well, look, I haven't drunk since 2010, and nobody would ever accuse me of being dull or boring. Uh, Let me just give you an example. I know that your listeners are mostly, if not all, men. Before I stopped drinking alcohol, I went to the Playboy Mansion in Holmby Hills in California, and I went there for a big party, and all the celebrities were there. Pamela Anderson was there. I met her, and the Hollywood actor Owen Wilson, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestler, and one of the Backstreet Boys or one of the NSYNC guys was there. I can't remember who it was, and of course Hugh Hefner and all the Playmates. And I had a wonderful time, and I drank alcohol, and I got really drunk, and I actually got thrown out because I jumped in the grotto with a friend of mine, and you weren't supposed to be swimming in the grotto on this particular party, right? It was actually a corporate event. It was the launch of a cable television channel called Spike TV, and so it was more of a corporate crowd, even though it was in this kind of hedonistic place of the Playboy Mansion. Now, I had a wonderful time, and I got drunk, and I got thrown out, and I got thrown out a few hours before I wanted to get thrown out, right? So even though I look back and I went, "Hey, that's a pretty cool story. I got thrown out of the Playboy Mansion." I also had a shocking hangover for 3 days, and I was kind of pissed that I missed the last 3 hours of the event, right? Fast forward to some years later, when at this stage, I think I was 7 or 8 years alcohol free. So it must have been 2017, 2018. I got invited to go back to the Playboy Mansion, this time alcohol free. And I had a far more enjoyable time this time around not drinking alcohol. I was dancing on tables with playmates. I was high-fiving people. I was, like, drinking soda water ice and a piece of lime. I got into conversations with playmates and attractive women. I met interesting people, and I remembered all of it, and I was clear, and I was engaged, and I was literally sipping soda water ice and a piece of lime all night. Now, if I can have a wonderful time and people can experience me as being a wonderful, fun guy, being alcohol free, then I would submit that every one of your listeners right now who's worried that they're not going to be able to have a fun time, or that people are going to think that they're dull or interesting, is just preposterous. It's a ridiculous notion. You do not need the alcohol to create a bond with your friends or to be part of a tribe. You just get to create a bond with your friends and be part of a tribe. And you can do that a million different ways that do not involve drinking attractively packaged poison. It's just your whole life, you've been indoctrinated into this idea, this ridiculous idea that you need to drink this poison in order to like smile and have fun and create mateship and create a like this social circle. BS. It's preposterous. And I get why we feel this way. I get it, and I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. First of all, is the obvious way, which is social conditioning, cultural conditioning. It's just you look everywhere and people are offering you a drink and they're doing it with a smile on their face. In our stop drinking program, we call those folks smiling assassins because they're smiling at you as they offer you a beer or a wine. They're going, "Hey, shall we have some drinks? Hey, can I get you a wine? Hey, you want a beer?" And they mean pretty well. They mean they've got good intentions, but nevertheless, they're offering you poison in an attractive bottle. right? And this has been going on for years and decades. So I get why your listener is probably going, "Oh, I can't drink like everyone else is drinking. I'm going to be the odd one out." So I get it. Second reason why we feel so nervous or uncomfortable about the idea of stopping drinking is because back when we were cavemen and cave women, we used to roam the earth in tribes of about 160, right? There's this famous tribe concept called Dunbar's tribe, which shows that we used to be in 160 people, 160 people tribes. Now, if you got kicked out of that 160 person tribe, it was certain death back then because the other bear or the rival tribesman would kill you, the wolf would eat you. You had no social support. It was death, right? But guess what? Today in 2024, if you get kicked out of a tribe, you just join another tribe. We've got food, we've got shelter. We're not being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. We're not supposed to murder each other anymore. There are rules around that. Like we've evolved as a species. And the other thing is that you can choose to leave the tribe and just join another tribe. You can choose to leave the tribe of alcohol is necessary for social engagement and go and join this tribe over here, of which I'm a big cheerleader of let's have the most fun being alcohol free.